The first whispers did not arrive with thunder or spectacle. They crept into the receivers of an observatory on a quiet night. A ripple of structured noise sliding through the hiss of cosmic background. The staff on duty nearly missed it, dismissing it as another of the countless anomalies that radio astronomers catalog and forget. But something lingered in the pattern. Too precise, too deliberate. Humanity had searched the skies for so long that the temptation to believe was dangerous. Yet temptation was exactly what the signal inspired. Hours turned into days as the recording was replayed, stretched, inverted, and filtered. Patterns emerged like bones beneath the sand. It was not random. It carried rhythm, order, a lattice of intent. What began as skepticism turned into obsession. Analysts who had spent decades buried in static felt the pulse of intelligence echoing from the stars. But there was something peculiar. The modulation was not aimed at Earth. Its frequency was slightly skewed, as if it slid past our planet by mistake, grazing our instruments only because of cosmic happenstance. When the first fragments were decoded, a chill swept through the team. The message was not a greeting. It was not a beacon meant to connect. It sounded like a request, urgent, clipped, efficient, as if sent in the middle of crisis. Coordinates repeated with mathematical certainty. A string of data pointing somewhere far from the solar system. There were symbols, too. Strange clusters that resembled warnings or technical jargon, far beyond human understanding. And then came the line that unsettled everyone. An identifier, a signature perhaps, yet its translation came through awkwardly, almost mocking in its clarity. Roughly it meant, this channel is reserved. Respondents must be authorized. There was no protocol for this. The scientists were bound by secrecy, but secrecy proved fragile in the age of instantaneous communication. Within weeks, whispers escaped. A leak here, a rumor there, until governments caught scent of something extraordinary. Meetings convened in shadowed halls. Officials demanded reports, and the signal was seized under the language of national security. The public heard nothing at first, yet the pressure of silence could not last. Someone always talks. By the time the first confirmation slipped into open networks, the world already buzzed with theories. Most assumed it was a hoax. Others believed it was simply garbled noise elevated by desperate wishful thinking. But a small, relentless group within the scientific community pressed onward, armed with data that could not be dismissed. The mathematics were undeniable. This was structured information, alien in origin, and it had reached us only by mistake. The phrase "wrong number" was muttered half-jokingly in closed rooms, yet the weight of it was terrifying. Humanity stood at a precipice. Was the message a distress call? A warning of invasion? A classified transmission intended for allies beyond our comprehension? No consensus existed, only fear and fascination, some urge restraint. If the call was not meant for us, perhaps we should remain silent. Others argued silence was impossible. Humanity had never been capable of ignoring the unknown. In the early hours of a cold morning, under layers of authorization and dissent, a decision was made. A reply would be attempted. Nothing extravagant, just a simple acknowledgement that the transmission had been received. The first pulse of humanity's voice left Earth riding on a beam of radio power, weak compared to the monumental distances, yet undeniable. A one-word message, chosen for its neutrality, its clarity across any mathematical translation. Hello. Days of waiting stretched into weeks. Skeptics dismissed the effort as wasted energy. Believers held vigils under the stars, waiting for the sky to speak back. When the response finally came, it nearly shattered the composure of those who heard it. The signal returned sharper, heavier, carrying a deliberate cadence. This time, the translation left little ambiguity. You were not meant to hear this. The words rang like judgment. They were not a welcome, not an invitation, but a dismissal. The implication was clear. Whoever had sent the original transmission had no intention of speaking with humans. We were intruders who had picked up the receiver on a cosmic line reserved for others. Yet humanity is not a species that surrenders curiosity. The reply, instead of deterring, only ignited determination. Analysts tore apart the packet for every scrap of data, every nuance of tone. Buried within were sequences that looked like instructions, technical scaffolding, perhaps blueprints or tactical data. If the transmission was a distress call, then somewhere in the galaxy an advanced civilization was embroiled in danger. And if it was not distress but coordination, then humanity had intercepted the movements of powers it could barely imagine. Governments convened emergency councils. Military leaders demanded secrecy. But scientists pushed for openness. For the first time, humanity faced undeniable proof of intelligence beyond Earth. Yet that proof carried a message of exclusion. To remain silent was to accept irrelevance. To reply was to risk wrath. The argument split nations, institutions, and individuals alike. Still, the compulsion to respond was irresistible. Another message was sent, this time longer, laced with mathematics and prime numbers, a demonstration of intelligence impossible to ignore. Humanity's voice was cautious yet insistent. We hear you. We are aware. We seek understanding. The reply arrived faster than expected, as if the senders had been waiting. Their tone was sharper, colder. The fragments translated into something resembling a warning. You are primitive. This is not your channel. Cease. For many, that should have been the end. The rational path was silence, to vanish on a line before further attention was drawn. But silence is unnatural to a species as painted cave walls, sailed oceans without maps, and launched itself into the void on fragile machines. The very act of being told no sparked defiance. Humanity had always reached for forbidden knowledge, and the stars were no different. Ordinary citizens, now aware through leaks and unofficial disclosures, began to speculate wildly. Online forums churned with theories. Ancient gods, galactic empires, interstellar wars. Some mocked the idea. Others embraced it with religious fervor. Governments struggled to maintain control of the narrative, but the genie had left the bottle. Humanity was already answering, in chatter, in thought, in sheer unstoppable curiosity. The third human message broke the pretense of restraint. It was not official. It did not come from governments or sanctioned laboratories. A group of rogue operators, using powerful civilian transmitters, hijacked the cosmic stage. Their message was short but bold. If you did not wish us to hear, you should not have spoken. The backlash was immediate. Officials denounced the act, scrambling to control the fallout. Yet the words had already flown into the dark, riding the same path as the original transmission. There was no undoing them. Humanity had revealed not only its presence, but its defiance. This time, the reply came with an edge of disbelief. The translation stuttered under the weight of alien syntax, yet the meaning was unmistakable. Your kind is reckless. You risk destruction. The response of dismissal should have ended the dialogue. But humans are not easily deterred by rejection. For every alien transmission that sought to close the door, 1,000 human minds sought new keys to pry it open. Humanity's reply, though fragmented and clumsy in its early form, carried an energy the aliens had not anticipated, an energy born of refusal to stay silent. The message left behind was brief, but it carried weight far beyond its simple characters. We will not vanish. On the other side of that immeasurable gulf, the aliens debated. In their archives, humanity would later uncover that they considered Earth an inconvenience, an accidental participant in conversations between powers far older and far more sophisticated. They regarded humans as disruptive background static, barely worth recognition. Yet the static refused to fade. Instead, it sharpened into coherence, solving fragments of information not even meant for them. What was intended as impenetrable, humans cracked with persistence. Where others would have bowed under the warning, humans pushed forward. This audacity intrigued some and enraged others. When the aliens sent what they believed an impossible test, a set of compressed data that contained complex construct of energy manipulation and resource coordination, they assumed silence would follow. Their expectation was that a species bound to a single planet could never unravel what had taken civilizations millennia to master. Yet, within months, human scientists had not only deciphered portions of it, but replicated the principles in simulation. It was crude, incomplete, a child scribbling next to an architect's blueprint. But the scribble carried the unmistakable spark of understanding. The alien council saw this with disbelief. In their eyes, humanity was a primitive flame burning on a small world. Yet that flame illuminated things I had no right to see. They warned again, their messages sharper, colder, repeating the command to cease. But the more they insisted, the more humanity resisted. For humans had lived under countless prohibitions throughout history, and each prohibition had been a stepping stone toward greater defiance. The global debate grew fiercer. Leaders who feared retaliation urged compliance. But a chorus of voices, scientists, philosophers, even ordinary citizens, began to shape a new narrative. To be told do not seek was the same as being told do not exist. Humanity could not tolerate being excluded from knowledge once glimpsed. Civilizations thrive not by ignoring curiosity, but by feeding it, even at terrible risk. The decision, though fractured across governments, was made not by decree, but by inevitability. Humanity would answer again. This time the reply was deliberate, crafted with care and ambition. It did not plead for recognition or beg for inclusion. It demonstrated. Encoded within was a fusion of mathematics, physics, and the raw ingenuity of adaptation. Equations of relativity sat beside sketches of orbital mechanics. Signals of chemical bonds aligned with digital bursts of art, waveforms that translated into sound, showing melody and harmony. For what is intelligence without creativity? Humanity did not merely say we are here. It said we think, we feel, we imagine. The alien reply came with unexpected hesitation. The translation carried a tone less dismissive, more cautious, though still lined with disdain. You progress faster than permitted. You trespass into currents that will drown you. Turn back before you are swept away. Instead of fear, the message fueled determination. To be told progress was forbidden was to be challenged. Throughout human history, warnings of doom had not extinguished ambition, but amplified it. Every wall declared uncrossable had been climbed. Every sea declared endless had been sailed. The stars were no different. Humanity would not turn back. Alien archives later revealed the arguments among them. Some urged annihilation, believing humans must be silenced before their persistence disrupted the fragile balance of interstellar powers. Others urged containment, to wall humanity within their system until they either collapsed or matured. But a smaller faction, rare yet influential, argued something different. Perhaps humanity's reckless curiosity was not weakness but strength. Perhaps they embodied something long eroded from the elder civilizations, a hunger untempered by fear. As the debate raged among beings who spanned star systems, humans continued their work in ignorance of the exact stakes. They intercepted new fragments, each carrying shards of knowledge. Piece by piece, they reconstructed a mosaic of galactic conflict. Fleets maneuvered. Supply chains stretched across constellations. Alliances fractured and reformed. It was a hidden war conducted in the shadows of the cosmos, and Earth had stumbled upon its dispatches. The more humans learned, the more audacious their replies became. They did not simply observe. They commented. They posed questions. They challenged the alien assumption that Earth had no place in the conversation. You speak of war. What do you fight for? You guard knowledge as though it is treasure. Why is it not shared? If you fear collapse, why do you not change? Each message pressed further. Not as equals, yet not as supplicants either. And then came the turning point. From one of the alien transmissions, decoded by brilliance and stubbornness combined, humanity extracted coordinates far more specific than before. They were not abstract positions, but tangible, traceable points in space. They suggested rendezvous of fleets, movements of war machines beyond imagination. The aliens had not intended this, yet humanity had stolen a glimpse of the galaxy's hidden arteries. When the aliens realized what had been uncovered, their tone shifted from dismissal to hostility. The next message was clear and sharp. You steal what is not yours. You risk consequences your kind cannot survive. This is final warning. But humanity had never responded well to final warnings. Instead, the next transmission was bold, almost taunting. It carried no apology, no retreat. It was simple, defiant, inevitable. You called the wrong number. But we are not hanging up. The words rippled across Earth, broadcast and rebroadcast, as soon as leaks carried them beyond classified walls. They became more than a message. They became a declaration. Humanity, for the first time in its history, had spoken to powers greater than itself and refused to be silenced. The phrase etched itself into the global consciousness, uniting factions that had been divided. It was reckless, it was audacious, and yet it was undeniably human. In the alien archives, later unearthed by historians who would look back upon this age as the dawn of humanity's ascension, there is mention of that reply. Some labeled it arrogance, others madness. Yet buried among their annotations is another word, reluctant yet undeniable: respect. The alien response was no longer veiled in indifference. For the first time, they revealed force, not with weapons launched toward Earth, but with demonstrations meant to crush the will of a lesser species. Signals carried visions of fleets vast enough to blot out stars, engines that bent space itself, weapons capable of reducing planets to ash. It was a calculated act of intimidation, a reminder that humanity was nothing more than an insect that had stumbled into the affairs of giants. The message was stripped of metaphor, harsh and undeniable. Withdraw, or we will erase you. For a moment, fear gripped Earth. The knowledge of civilizations wielding such power made human conflicts appear as the quarrels of children. Yet alongside fear came something more stubborn, something woven into the very nature of the species: refusal. Humanity did not cower before storms. It built shelters and sailed ships into tempests. It did not shrink before mountains. It carved paths through them. And now, faced with the immensity of galactic empires, it did not surrender. The leaders of Earth knew they could not match such fleets with strength. They had no armadas of their own, no weapons forged to tear apart planets. But what they did possess was ingenuity. They were unpredictable, unshackled by tradition, willing to improvise in ways the ancient civilizations had long forgotten. Where the alien powers relied on structures of authority and layers of protocol, humans thrived in chaos, in risk, in adaptation. So humanity answered, not with silence, not with submission, but with persistence. They continued to send transmissions, more daring each time. Some were filled with science, demonstrations of rapid learning, of problem-solving at speeds that unsettled the observers. Others carried art, defiance expressed not in equations, but in poetry, in music, in images of survival and struggle. The message was clear: we cannot be erased because we are more than survival. We are spirit. The aliens watched, and among them divisions grew deeper. To some, humanity was a dangerous aberration, a fire that must be extinguished before it spread. To others, humanity was a phenomenon worth study, perhaps even admiration. They saw in humans something reckless yet vital, a refusal to bow, even before overwhelming odds. Where older civilizations had calcified, humans still burned with raw will. The escalation came not through invasion but through trial. The aliens sent challenges, encrypted structures so complex they were meant to demonstrate humanity's limitations. Each was designed as a wall too high for a primitive species to climb. Yet each time, humanity found a foothold. Sometimes progress came through brilliance, other times through collective effort, thousands of minds working together across the planet. Solutions emerged not from hierarchy but from collaboration, a trait the aliens had not anticipated. The tests grew harder. Algorithms that mapped energy beyond human science, models of interstellar resource distribution, simulations of conflict strategies waged across light years. And still, humanity pressed forward. They did not always succeed completely, but each attempt carried creativity that confounded the judges. Where the expected answer was singular, humans produced many, twisting and reshaping problems until gaps appeared in their impossibility. The aliens had asked for proof of submission to superior logic. Instead, they received proof of imagination. And imagination, once unleashed, cannot be contained. The tension reached its peak when a final challenge arrived, one never intended for Earth's eyes. It was a sequence tied to the very heart of the galactic conflict, coordinates and energy configurations that hinted at weapons of civilization-ending scale. To send such information was not test, but accident, a fracture in alien secrecy. Yet humanity seized it, dissected it, and in doing so demonstrated understanding that shocked even the most skeptical alien counselors. For though Earth could not wield such power, it understood enough to recognize its shape, and to voice a chilling truth. The next human transmission was quiet, almost solemn. We see what you do. We see what you risk. We know war when we see it, for we have waged it ourselves. If you think we will cower before your threats, you mistake us. We will endure as we always have, and we will remember. Those words carried farther than intended. In alien records, the phrase, "we will remember," began to echo as a warning. For memory is dangerous. It means survival, persistence, the ability to learn, and one day to rival. To be remembered by a species that refuses to die is to plant the seed of future reckoning. And then came the retaliation. Not fleets, not bombardment, but silence. The most deliberate silence in cosmic history. The channel that had once carried transmissions shut down. Where once data pulsed with authority, now there was only void. It was meant as erasure, as exile. Without guidance, without acknowledgement, humanity was expected to return to its isolation, to shrivel in insignificance. But humanity did not shrivel. The silence was taken not as defeat, but as challenge. Deprived of transmissions, humans turned inward, driving their own technologies forward. What had been accelerated by alien puzzles now became fuel for independent invention. Propulsion, energy, computation, all surged under the pressure of exclusion. Denied dialogue, humanity created one with itself. In doing so, they discovered something the alien powers had overlooked. Humans had no concept of waiting their turn. They did not require permission to rise. They required only the knowledge that something lay ahead and the defiance to pursue it. The stars became not forbidden territory, but inevitable inheritance. And somewhere, in the far reaches of the galaxy, alien eyes watched with growing unease as humanity began to walk unaided into the dark.